Breaking news, a federal judge has rejected the Republican effort to steal a state Supreme Court election in North Carolina. Welcome back to Democracy Docket. I'm Marc Elias.
And I'm Paige Moskowitz. Let's get started.
All right, Paige, this one is hot off the presses. A federal district court in North Carolina has just issued a sweeping order rejecting Jefferson Griffin and the Republican Party's effort to overturn the result of the 2024 state Supreme Court election. The judge enjoined the state Board of Elections from going forward with the cure process ordered by the state judge and ordered the certification of Allison Riggs the winner of the election.
Now, Marc, we have talked about this time and time again, but to give everyone a quick background, in November 2024, incumbent Democratic Justice Allison Riggs defeated her challenger, Jefferson Griffin, a Republican, by just over 700 votes. This was confirmed in 2 recounts. However, Jefferson Griffin launched a 65,000 vote ballot challenge, claiming that tens of thousands of North Carolinians had incomplete voter registrations, didn't provide the proper photo ID with their mail-in ballot, or in fact had never resided in the state at all and weren't eligible to vote.
Yeah, and Paige, this was, as I said, a sweeping opinion. I mean, the judge, displayed the kind of tone that we got used to in the aftermath of the 2020 election, when Republicans on behalf of Donald Trump were making these audacious claims to effectively change the rules of voting after the election was complete. This judge was having none of it. He said, you don't get to change the rules after the game's played. He cited the Purcell Doctrine. He, from top to bottom, ruled against the state of North Carolina's State Board of Elections. He ruled against the Jefferson Griffin. He ruled essentially against what the state Supreme Court and the State Court of Appeals had held. And let me just give you a flavor for how this opinion ends. This is when he gets to the point of what he is ordering. He says, the state board shall not, in all capitals, take any action in furtherance of the North Carolina Court of Appeals and Supreme Court's orders. The state board shall, in all capitals, certify the result of the election for seat 6 based on the tally at the completion of the canvass period on December 10th, 2024. Jefferson Griffin's petition for judicial review are denied. Jefferson Griffin's motion for injunctive relief are denied. Justice Riggs' motion for injunctive relief is granted. The Vote Fed Action Fund Party's motion for summary judgment, that's who my law firm represented, is granted. The North Carolina Democratic Party request for injunctive relief is granted. This goes on and on and on. This was from top to bottom, without exception, a complete and utter repudiation of what the Republican Party tried to pull off here. And good for this judge for not hedging, not holding back, not holding out any false hope, and hopefully putting this to bed.
Right. The judge said in his opinion, this case concerns whether the federal constitution permits a state to alter the rules of an election after the fact and apply those changes retroactively to only a select group of voters, and in doing so, treat those voters differently than other similarly situated individuals. This case is also about whether a state may redefine its class of eligible voters, but offer no process to those who may have been misclassified as ineligible. To this court, the answer to each of those questions is no.
Right. And you mentioned, by the way, that you and I have covered this from literally start to finish. We've actually had Allison Riggs, the Democratic candidate and the incumbent state Supreme Court justice, on several times. And we've talked about how important this is. And so I want to ask everyone watching this video, just take a second and click the subscribe button on this YouTube video, because Paige and I keep you up to date on everything that's happening, all of the breaking news around democracy, whether it's in North Carolina or elsewhere. Paige, the other thing that was very interesting that a number of commentators pointed out already is that the judge who ruled in this case was appointed by Donald Trump. Now, that doesn't, dictate the outcome of cases. We've seen lots of instances in which judges appointed by presidents of one party rule against plaintiffs in their case. But this is a very well-respected, very conservative judge. This is not someone who you necessarily would have assumed would be open to the arguments being made by Justice Riggs and by the other plaintiffs, like the ones that my law firm represented, because they were arguing for a view of voting rights that was expansive. And this judge agreed from start to finish, said you cannot change the rules of the game afterwards, that this does involve the fundamental rights of vote. So that should hopefully, by the way, hopefully put to bed some of the cynicism that you and I run into all the time when people say, well, you're never going to get a fair shake, based on who the judge is.
But Marc, I'm going to play a cynic real quick, if you'll let me, which is to say,
you always find a way to be the downer.
I got to keep it real. Got to keep it real, Marc. Which is to say, can't this ruling just be appealed?
Yeah. So look, the judge said he's going to stay the decision for 7 days, pending giving an opportunity for an emergency appeal. I'd be very surprised if this judge issued a stay pending the appeal beyond that 7 days. And the thing is, Jefferson Griffin's road from here, along with the Republican Party, goes through the Fourth Circuit. And the Fourth Circuit is a majority Democratic appointed court. It is also a very pro voting rights court. Remember, it's the Fourth Circuit that struck down the 2013 law passed by the North Carolina legislature as targeting African Americans with near surgical precision. It is the same Fourth Circuit that issued a series of pro-voting rights rulings in the 2020 pre-election context when there were challenges going on around voting rights in the middle of a pandemic. So I think that Jefferson Griffin has to know he has a very uphill battle to convince the Fourth Circuit that this judge, that Judge Myers, who is, like I said, a conservative, that somehow he got it wrong, was too pro-voting. That seems very unlikely to me. And before you ask about the U.S. Supreme Court, this does not feel like the kind of case this U.S. Supreme Court, with everything else it's got going on, is going to wade into the middle of. So I think we can say it is not over because, I expect the Republicans will appeal and appeal and appeal. But I think we took a huge step forward right now in the fight for free and fair elections in the state of North Carolina. And this, at least, Paige, right now for this 2024 election. But as we know, the Republicans in North Carolina have already taken steps to undermine free and fair elections in the future.
Marc, and I want to touch on that because one of the way North Carolina lawmakers have done that is by changing the appointment power for the state board of election from the governor, who is currently a Democrat, to the state auditor, who is a Republican. And that had some implications for this race as well, right? Just a couple days ago, the state auditor changed the composition of the board from a majority Democratic board to a majority Republican board, which is important because that board did play a role in the state Supreme Court contest.
Yeah, so let's break that out into three pieces. First of all, what went on? As you point out, the legislature in North Carolina has been trying to seize control of the appointments to the State Board of Elections from the governors for the last few years. Why? Because the governor has been a Democrat, and the current governor is a Democrat. First, to try to seize it so that the legislature itself could appoint a majority, could appoint the members of the board. That got blocked by the state courts. So now they came back and they handed it not to the governor, which they took it away from, not to the Secretary of State, which some states have an election role, not even to the Attorney General. Why? Because the governor, the Secretary of State, and the Attorney General are all Democrats. So instead, they planted this power to appoint the State Board of Elections with the guy who balances the checkbook for the state of North Carolina, the guy overseeing the budget, right? Nothing to do with elections, but he, the auditor, gets to appoint it. Why? Because that's the Republican, that's the statewide Republican that they were able to put this in the hands of. And so the good news is this won't impact this particular decision. The state board is out of business in this case. I mean, the federal judge saw the potential ways that they could try to maneuver around this. And that's why I read you that part of the order. This judge basically said, you state board of elections, you have no further discretion. You state courts, you're done. Okay. This is the way this is going to be. You're going to certify the election results as it was in December, and that means Allison Riggs wins. But that doesn't mean that all is well for the future, because this state board of elections can engage in all kinds of activity between now and 2026 to put its thumb on the scale for how that election is conducted. And all I can promise you, if you're watching this video, is that Democracy Docket will be on top of it every single step of the way. Paige and I have done video upon video upon video about what Republicans have tried to do to undermine voting in North Carolina and around the country. That's why I am again going to ask you to please just click on the button to subscribe to our YouTube channel. It is one of the most effective ways for us to keep you informed about what is happening to democracy in court.
We'll continue to follow this case. We will let you know when Jefferson Griffin and Republicans inevitably appeal, what happens in the Fourth Circuit, and what the final resolution of this case is. Like Marc said, you can stay informed by hitting the subscribe button on our YouTube or by signing up for our free daily and weekly newsletters. The links for that are above or in the show notes below.
And thanks for watching this episode of Democracy Docket. We'll see you next time.